Why am I scared for Chelsea? Well, I think you saw a number of things yesterday that were alarming about Chelsea, a number of things leading up to this season that were alarming about Chelsea, and we're going to go into all of that. I've actually watched yesterday's game again today to make sure I have a complete understanding of what went on, because I'm not going to lie to you, I came out of yesterday's game with a very different interpretation or opinion to the vast majority, it seems. I mean, yesterday, shout out Pitchside, it was very nice of them having me on. But you're watching without commentary, you're watching without influence, without looking at your phone on Twitter, whatever. I wasn't annoyed at how we played so much yesterday. And having watched it again, I maintain the same opinion. Yesterday's game was a very balanced game, and the difference was two things. Two things that we've been aware of going into the new season. A lack of being clinical up top. Now, Jackson's chance, or chances, there was one where he was offside, where he did bag, and another one in the second half he should have scored from. He didn't put those away. Haaland had one chance. Haaland scored his chance. Then you have the difference of Poppadomhan's keepers. Now, Enzo Maresca is not blameless. Like, why is Robert Sanchez playing? How bad can Jorgensen be to not displace Robert Sanchez? But Robert Sanchez on the second goal is pathetic, and the game's gone at that point. Edison, he had his Poppadomhan's moment with the offside goal, but he got away with it in that regard, and he saved a number of others. Robert Sanchez was at fault for that goal. So those are your two differences. We knew going into this season, hell, we even knew going into last season, Chelsea need to strengthen in goal. Chelsea need to be more clinical. They need like a striker, an out-and-out goal-getter. Those were the differences between yesterday's teams. Like, there were some nice patterns of play that were being seen from Chelsea yesterday. There weren't things I was seeing where I was thinking, Jesus Christ, what's our structure? What are we trying to do? And as much as people want to pin things like playing out from the back or whatever, the second goal comes as a result of us not playing out from the back. Fofana decides to boot it. We're a bit unlucky to who it falls to. Could Caicedo and Enzo maybe have done a bit better? Maybe foul Kovacic? Sure, yeah, but Sanchez is at fault for that goal mainly. The biggest things that I'm more scared of when it comes to Chelsea is actually seeing some of that response, to be honest, in terms of how negative it was. I don't know what game people watched. I don't know what they thought we were coming up against in Man City, that they were going to be a team that rolled over and we were just going to muller them. I don't know. That was not my interpretation of the game. My interpretation of the game was like, can we go in? Can we show competitiveness? Can we be balanced? We were. My worries was more defensively. This high line we'd seen in the pre-season, how exploited are we going to be? Last season, letting in a record number of goals. And we looked somewhat combative in defence. Do I think we could have done a bit better on the first goal? I thought Fofana and Colwill maybe didn't cover themselves in complete glory there, but I think Haaland takes it well. The second goal, I think, is on Sanchez. Other than that, I thought they defended fairly immaculately. It wasn't really easy to get in behind us. It wasn't really easy to break us down. We were getting possession. We were getting our fair share of not so much clear-cut chances, but half chances. You know, there's a ball where Gusto should do better. There's a couple offside runs. It was not some dreadful performance that it feels like it's been made out to be. And look, when it's our own fans, that's where I have a bit more frustration. And look, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm not someone that will sit there and go, oh, you can't be negative, you can't be positive at all times. I will hammer them when I feel it's necessary to hammer them. I didn't think that was warranted yesterday. Not in the slightest. I understand it as well because it's lingering resentment from how they've run the club the last 2-3 years. And if you want to disagree with that, in terms of how they've run that, I get it. I agree with it. Do I think they've spent £1 billion sensibly? Fuck no. But losing it yesterday just did not feel warranted. It felt like a performance that, like, okay, we can build off that. If you play like that against most teams in the league, you'll win most games. Do we need to be more clinical? Yeah. Could we do with a striker that is more clinical? Yeah. Could we do with the goalkeeper? Yeah, we know these things. And that's poor on the owners. Those are the things that we should be attacking. I didn't think there was anything wrong with the football itself. It really confused me in that regard. What was more alarming to me yesterday was Raheem Sterling's statement an hour before kickoff. Now, this bloke has been the agent of averageness the entire time at Chelsea. And what, because he's not picked in the starting 11, he could put a statement out. Oh, I care about the club so much that I'm going to drop a statement and cause more drama an hour before kickoff. Get out. And do you know what the sad thing is? We won't get him out because no one's dumb enough to give him half what we pay him a week. And that comes from that first summer, signing those experienced players, big wages. We did that with Sterling, we gave him 300k, there you go. The key part I took from Raheem Sterling's statement was 3 years. I have 3 years. Basically saying, good fucking luck getting rid of me. We know no one's going near me with my wages and I'm not going to accept lower than that. He knows he's not going to get lower than that. And yeah, putting that out, and this isn't a case of like, oh, could Sterling have been on the bench? Yeah, he could have, but Enzo Maresca chose what? Madueke, Mudryk, Neto. What, should we go 4 wingers? Chukwuemeka and Disasi weren't on the bench yesterday. I didn't see any statements from them. I care about the club so much, I'm putting that out. Stuff like that, what's that going to help with? How does that help? And I'm addressing frustration there because I don't think people should have been quite so negative. But you are entitled to your opinion, especially as a fan. We watch it every week. I understand the turmoil we've been in the last couple of years. I understand the negativity, but I do think there's things to be more positive with. This squad that we're currently watching came sixth last year. They're young and they'll kick on. This isn't the 12th place squad they had the first year. It's not. A lot of those have been gotten rid of. A lot of those people were crying about that we've sold. They came 12th. This squad that we've currently got is sixth, and we've added some. Like, we should be pushing for that top four. That's what we want. Minimum. That's what the minimum Chelsea should be doing. That's what the precedent that Romans set, is to compete at the highest level. And we haven't seen that. So I get it. I get why people are annoyed. But in these couple years, I would say that the first squad that you saw with your Koulibalys, your Aubameyangs, Sterling, Mount, Gallagher, Havertz, Kovacic, Jorginho, all those guys, that was a different squad. That feels a decade ago. As much as it's part of the same ownership, and that's where the frustration is, because we've had consecutive years not being very good. Last year, this squad was sixth, which is not good enough for Chelsea. I'm not sitting there going, oh, great, we came sixth. I'm saying that young squad came sixth. They're a different squad. They're an entirely different squad. I don't know how that needs to be explained anymore. And it doesn't help when, realistically, look, we know as Chelsea fans, if you've been around long enough, when we were actually good or even great, we never got credit with the media. We were always, Costa crimes and all that bollocks. So everyone was out trying to get their kicks in yesterday before a ball was kicked. Let's be fair. Like, we're sitting there seeing 40-man squads. If you could do that with every club. If I'm sat there putting Matos in and Bergstrom and players like Humphreys, who have already left Chelsea, they're literally gone, putting that in to suit an agenda, to push this idea like, oh my God, look at all these. Like, you could do that with any other team. You could generally just be like, all right, we'll just stick all these youth ones in as well, all these lone ones. Like, realistically, come on. So I do find that to be a complete joke. But we need to be, a united front in terms of what Chelsea are. We're facing turmoil at the moment. And in the last few years, and I've seen this statement a lot today, I've seen it in the past, of it doesn't feel like Chelsea, I feel disconnected. And I completely resonate with that. I could not agree more in terms of what this ownership has done, in how it's driven a stake between the fans and the club. It has felt disconnected. I could not agree more. That is the emotion I've very much felt. Right now, I think, in a weird way, I feel more connected than ever. And not in terms of their methodology, not in terms of how I agree with, looking at the homegrown sales or whatever. I feel connected in the sense that this is a tough period for Chelsea, and we need to get through it. We need to get through it. We, collective, regardless of whether you agree with what they do or not, and whether we agree with the Enzo Maresca appointment or not. Would I have wanted Tuchel back? Yeah, I would have. I would have gone for that. They've gone with this guy. That's not on him. Let's see what we do, because we did see a bit of a philosophy starting to take place. We did see patterns of play that were enjoyable yesterday. We did see signs that this could develop into the season. Like, I honestly could not believe the reaction when I got off the show. I genuinely couldn't. And having watched it again, like I said, I don't think there's going to be many people who can sit there and go, yeah, I've watched both those 90s in the last 24 hours. I've watched both those 90s in the last 24 hours. I'm telling you, that was a balanced game separated by quality. And the quality was striker, keeper. Genuinely, there was not much between those two sides. Really surprised how it's been framed. I didn't even think the midfield was bad. I saw it was a lot of criticism towards Enzo Fernandez. There was the bit where he set up Gusto. There was a bit where he put the ball on the end and Neto almost got there. Like, okay, were there other aspects of his game that weren't perfect? Yeah, I didn't think anyone was perfect. I didn't think City were perfect. Did anyone see De Bruyne yesterday? People losing their minds about first game of the season against City. Get it, the last few years has been tough. And the things that I'm worried about in terms of, those homegrown sales. Is it also the fact that when you look at a Cole or a Reece there, you also think maybe they sold those players because they don't see where they fit? Gallagher earned his place in the squad last season, and I disagree with selling the guy. But does everyone want Chelsea to be back on top? Because if everyone wants Chelsea to be back on top, Conor Gallagher wouldn't start games. He'd be a squad player, and that's why I'd keep him. You can understand why they look at it and go, oh, you left, okay, we're going to have to sell him. Or Trevor Chalobah is not some saviour. He's not. A lot of these players were part of that squad that came 12th. That we are harbouring onto that resentment for. That's why there's so much negativity at the moment. A lot of those players from that team that had that awful season, they are not there. Or they're in the process of getting them out. So I don't really know what people want immediately from the off from yesterday. I really don't. I wanted a result. Of course we do. But if we just look at results, you might as well just not watch. What's the point in watching? If all you're looking for is just the results, why watch it? Genuinely. Like yesterday, you saw signs there. You saw the build-up look slicker. You saw us look more structured and more combative defensively. Last season, broke the goals record for how many we conceded. Yesterday, they do let two in. I'm not happy with how the first was defended. I thought the centre-backs could have done better. But in general, I thought they had a decent game. And the second one's on the keeper. Like, realistically, last year, a lot of time we looked a mess. Or even in pre-season, people's concerns. This high line, whatever. That wasn't being exploited yesterday by literally one of the best teams in the world. Like, Haaland had his one chance and he took it. He took it because he's a top striker. We know Nicholas Jackson. We know he's a talented footballer, but we know he can't finish his dinner. We know he can't kick the ball properly. But he had more chances than Haaland did. Like, I don't really know what more there was to take from the game other than we're not quite there yet. We're not at City's level. They've got more match-winning quality than we do, and we're aware of that. And that's where you should pin your anger maybe towards the owners, is the fact that we've known for years we need a striker who's clinical. We know we need that. We know we need that. And that's not there. We know we need a top goalkeeper, and that's not there. Those are two things ignored by the ownership. That's what we should be looking at. That's what we should be pinning it on. Getting frustrated towards Maresca yesterday, I just couldn't understand that. And then you've got Sterling doing all his silly bollocks. Like, that epitomised him to a T. Greedy bastard. Honestly, like, the amount of times we watched him not square the ball last season, and then, on the day that, I really care about the fans, I care about all this, so I'm dropping a statement 1 hour before kickoff. Okay, mate. Okay, 3 years left. That's, things like that are a worry. And that was from the initial strategy of signing the experience, signing on big wages, and look where that's left us with him. Like, realistically, anyone backing the fact that he did that, I can't understand at the moment. Like, that's just trying to get a kick in. We've got the rest of the window, and we hope they address those two positions. It would be some upgrade. It would make some difference. Like I said, that was the difference between the two sides yesterday. I know people were saying, like, oh, we were slow to build up, we looked a bit confused in the final third. Yeah, maybe at times, maybe not everyone was up to speed. Like I said, did you see De Bruyne? There were multiple players of Cities that weren't quite up to speed either. Over the course of the weekend, how many teams have you looked where you've been like, wow, they look really up to speed? I thought Liverpool in the second half. Saka? Is that it? As far as I'm aware, that was pretty much it. Brighton? Maybe you could say Brighton? Like, people criticising as well Cole Palmer's performance. Like, the guy's just come back. Or how he was used, saying, oh, he was just hugging the touchline. No, he wasn't. The guy was drifting around a number of times. The guy actually played a number of passes that were all right, but they're not quite up to speed. But it will come. Over the next stretch of games is where we'll really see Chelsea develop, or we won't. Or, genuinely, they are, they've got the real wrong guy, it's not working out or whatever. Quite quickly, you'll be able to, have enough data to go off. Not yesterday against City in a fairly balanced game. Like, I don't know why people were drawing the conclusions that they were. I really don't. I think a lot of people go into football, and this isn't even just a Chelsea thing, but in general, people will go into watching a football game with an opinion before the game. And they'll voice that opinion regardless of what they see. And that is the case with the media. We've seen so much with us, and we're seeing so much at the moment. It's just tick these buzzwords when it comes to Chelsea. And I don't know, I feel like it's crept into our fan base somewhat. I don't know. Maybe that's just a social media thing. I don't know. I think some almost want the negativity. It felt like some almost wanted a loss yesterday to feel, I'm right. There we go. It's like, what are we watching for then? Where's your love and passion for the club coming from? And like I said, I understand the whole feeling detached stuff. I get it. I felt it. I just think at the moment, with things feeling that low, and you can see it, you can hear it. I mean, even the atmosphere yesterday seemed somewhat somber. It's the first game of the season. And I know a lot of us want clarity on when are Chelsea going to be back on the top. We know they've taken a different route, this project, with these young players. Do we all agree with it? No. Do we fuck? But that's where they've gone. That's where they've gone with it. They have got a number of good players. There are things to look forward to with Chelsea. There are good players to watch. And we don't know the capabilities of this coach. We don't know if he'll turn into a Pep. Who knows? Like, all we've got at the moment is that he looks a bit like Pep. But I wasn't mad at yesterday's structure. I looked at a few things like, Kunku is a winger. No, let's not do that. And mate, don't play Sanchez. Do not play Sanchez. Other than that, some of the subs maybe? Like normal things that are not, it's not this be all and end all. It's as if we've lost to like Southampton at home yesterday and got battered. Or City have come in and just pasted us. Didn't feel like that. Watching it the first time, didn't feel like watching it the second time. And like I said, I'd say if it's warranted, and I was genuinely like super concerned, I'd say. And if in the next stretch of games it all continues and it got worse or whatever, or we struggled even more in certain games, yeah, sure. I'd have even more case for us to be concerned. But off yesterday, I just thought it was a bit mad. Like, I'm more scared that that negativity just creeps in and it's just something that seeped in now to the point of it feels like no return in terms of how does that change? Is the only answer like, oh, we bring Tuchel back, and at least then they're like, okay, at least we know they've admitted they got that wrong. Like, is that what we're looking for exactly? I think ultimately it does come down to winning. I know a lot of people like to say, they go, no, I'm just upset at the club. I'm upset at the homegrown player sales. Okay, well, Roman was doing all that and no one was crying about it at the time because we were winning. No one was crying when Gahey was getting sold at the time, or Tammy, or Tomori. No one cared because we were winning Champions League. Realistically, it does come down to results. It's a results-based, but if we'd won yesterday, you wouldn't have had people crying, regardless of what they saw, even if we played crap and just nicked it. Who knows? None of us would be. We'd be celebrating. Of course we do. We'd beat City. But all they can do is win to, quiet the noise. Because the media are going to keep chatting. And I don't know. I think people are in danger of letting that seep into their opinion purely because emotions are high. Like, we're all concerned. We all have seen what our club was for such a long period deteriorate under this ownership and go with a whole new strategy that we're not familiar with, we're not comfortable with, we don't recognise, and that's why we feel that, disconnected nature with the club. Because realistically, as much as people want to pin it on homegrowns or whatever, Roman was doing all that. That was no different. The thing that's changed is Chelsea's results. And last season, that squad, their new squad they've assembled, came 6th, as opposed to the previously assembled squad that came 12th. Now, 6th is nothing to celebrate, as I said, but it was a dramatic improvement on that front. We want to see more improvement this season. And I don't want to think that we won't give them the chance to do that. Not the ownership, like I said, you could knock them for whatever, but like the players and the manager that we've not even seen, can we not give that a go in terms of, as a collective, like, let's look at it somewhat fairly. I just think everyone had pre-occurring agendas going into yesterday's game that they were going to voice regardless. And this isn't just fans, this is just literally anyone that was commenting on the game, it felt like. And then it felt like a minority just watched it and went, oh, we weren't that bad, but a couple bits of quality separated the two teams. I did not take anything more from that game than that. Oh, and a few aren't quite up to speed. Honestly, confusing one, alarming one. And that's more what I'm a bit scared of. I'm also scared that they're not going to address those two issues that we know are present, that we've known are present for years, that we know need to be addressed. They need to be addressed. Us doing those things would go a long way. And we all know that as fans. We all watch Chelsea. We all see Chelsea. And we want Chelsea to be competing at the highest level, so we know what's missing. But I think misdirecting anger towards other issues isn't it. Like, I don't see what help that is, and I don't see the true validity in doing it. Because like I said, a lot of it's very flawed in terms of it was happening under Roman as well. We were just winning. That is the big difference. As much as people want to pin it on, oh, it's not because of that. It is. It is. Like, it was ever present throughout his time. No one cared. Because we were fucking great. And at the moment, we've been fucking shit for a few years. So I get the anger. I really do. But the more people feel disconnected, the more it feels to me like genuinely, maybe it is a case of like, oh, it's because we're not winning. And that isn't the case. I know that's not the case. Because like I said, that's something I felt. That's something I know my dad's felt. Someone who supported the club for over 50 odd years has felt that disconnected nature of Chelsea because it's unrecognisable in terms of how it's run, in terms of what you see on the pitch. It has been unrecognisable. So it's a natural feeling. But I almost feel like I've got that back in seeing this kind of wave of negativity, in seeing how the media are misrepresenting us, in terms of this, 40-man squad when you could do the same with any other team, in terms of how they always want to get the boot in. I feel that's created a bit more of that siege mentality, to me anyway. I know some people within our own fan base, it doesn't feel like that's the case. It feels like almost they're becoming part of it. Other content creators, etc., becoming part of that. And we have to combat that. We have to fight for our club. As much as we might not like the people in charge of it, like, this is Chelsea, regardless of who's in charge of it, and we don't like it. You've seen it with Newcastle, with Ashley or whatever. We might not like how they operate. We might not agree with how they're operating. But this is Chelsea, and we want the best for Chelsea, naturally. Who doesn't, if you're not a Chelsea fan? Like, people that you can tell, you can smell it. People wanted that loss yesterday. There were people out there that wanted it. They would rather be right than Chelsea succeed. A lot of them. I don't see what the help is there. If you want Chelsea to succeed, I think unity is the key in that. And we don't feel united because of them, because of those owners. I get that. That's what's driven that stake. We had that unity. We had that us against the world mentality for a number of years. Mourinho installed it. Roman installed it. Like I said, the media's never changed. They've always shot on us. Rival fans have never wanted to see us succeed, and that's understandable. They're on the outside. They're not living and breathing this club. But there comes a point where we need that back, regardless of who's in charge. Like, should there be some fight back to kind of demand more from the owners in terms of address those two key needs I've spoken about in this video that we need to address? Yeah, of course. But when it comes to the players or the manager, like first game of the season up against the champions, in a game that was, like I said, really balanced, I could not take more from that game. That's my original opinion I took. I rewatched it purely because I was so bewildered by the reaction, and I was like, have I missed something? I watched it in a different atmosphere to usual. Maybe that was an influence. Let me watch it again. No. I drew the same conclusions. Confused with yesterday. There were things to be positive about. There were things to look forward in the future. Neto made a sharp cameo. That was good to see. Even as much as if it came from above to get rid of Sterling, to drop Sterling, which I don't even know if it did. Like I said, you had Madueke, Mudryk, Neto on the bench. Maybe he just went with those three wingers. You're going to go 4 wingers? I don't think so. Anyway, if he were dropped and they want to get rid of him, how many Chelsea fans have sat there loving Sterling in his time? Like, everyone's been moaning about him. What now? Now it's an issue? Like, we need to get that unity back quick, regardless of whether you disagree with how they operate. And we had that unity with Roman. We were very lucky as Chelsea fans. We had the best owner football's had. We had the best. He gave us the best memories we'll ever have in our lives, and we'll always be thankful for that, right? How many clubs love their owners? There ain't many. Like, realistically, you even saw this with Arsenal years ago. They were always moaning about these cronkies. Now they can't get enough of them because they did have to back an Arteta or whatever. And I hate all that trust the process bollocks. Like, look, we'll know after a couple months whether Maresca's up to it or not. Like, we're not going to sit there and be like, oh no, give him 5 years blindly. I'm not saying that in the slightest. Like I said, I think that those buzzwords piss me off as much as it does anyone. But first game of the season against City is not the time to go, yep, he's fucked. Like, it's just not. I just thought that was bizarre. And, it's as much as, you make that comparison. I make that comparison there with, like, Cronkies or whatever. Like, they're sat there connected to their team and their manager and stopped moaning about the owners. They're not even going on about them. But they had done, in the same way that we had done. But if we see, and we've got talented players like Cole Palmer, Gusto, Lavia. What a wicked debut that was for Lavia, by the way. And I'm saying it's his debut because that's his first start in the Chelsea shirt. And he looked good against the champions. Like Neto coming off the bench. Like, Jackson showed bits. Some of them weren't quite up to speed. But we know from last season how talented those boys can be. Like I said, this squad came 6th. This squad didn't come 12th. It's a different squad. It's the same owners, yeah. So there's still that resentment to them. Completely get it. Not that squad. Last season, that was a frustrating season. It was a long season. There were some really shit results in that. But we saw promise. We saw reasons to be optimistic. We saw reasons to think that they'll kick on. And we saw holes to plug within that team that they haven't quite plugged. And that's a concern. That's, what I'd be more scared for. Without getting those key incomings in terms of delivering clinical up top and delivering keeping goals out in goal, this could continue to the point that it gets pinned on them again. And at this point, I don't know if it should be pinned on them. I don't. But I can't lie to you. I don't know how, looking at yesterday, you think João Felix is the answer to that. And as much as I think he's a talented guy, like, that to me, when I watch those Jackson chances, or even some of the other ones where someone wasn't the end of a cross, like Neto put in a good cross where, like, Enzo gets the head to it, but Jackson wasn't quite there. Or the one that Enzo puts in that Neto almost gets it on, and Jackson wasn't there. Like, those kind of things, I look at like an Aussie man, I'm like, he's there. That's bread and butter for an out-and-out number 9. That's bread and butter. That's 1-1. That's 1-0, whatever. Like, those are big difference makers. They got Haaland, they got their difference maker. We've got players like Palmer who are difference makers. We need more of them. City have got loads of them. That's why they won 4 years. That's why they won 4 leagues in a row. That's why they won a treble. They've got loads of difference makers. That's why when Chelsea were great, we had difference makers. At the moment, we don't quite have them. At the moment, we've got players who could become difference makers. We've got some good, young, talented players. They've gone with that strategy. Like I said, whether you accept it or not it's redundant. It's there. It's done. but it's still Chelsea Football Club. And that's why I just feel constantly being anti it, or constantly anti the players, because they're symbolic of what the owners stand for. It's the wrong way to go about it. Be anti a lot of the way that the ownership have operated. Cool. Fair. So fair. But some of these players, it's like, nah, we want to build them up. If we'd signed, Lampard, Drogba, Essien, all these players at 22, 21, they'd have been very different to how when we signed them. JT came through, but like Drogba was signed at 26. Frank was signed at what, 24, 23? And he kicked on more as he got like 25. A lot of those guys are young players, and they are getting better. They were getting better last season. We saw that. We saw that with the results as well. So, let's not press the panic button day one when it's not necessary. And I'd implore you, honestly, watch that game back. Watch that game back if you felt that negative towards it. There'll be bits you can pick out that are negative. Like I said, it wasn't some amazing performance. I wasn't sat there being like, wow, my socks have been blown off by a Maresca ball. Like, that's not how I watched the game. But I did consume it thinking, there were some nice bits there. There were some nice bits in build-up. Wow, we got in behind City a couple times. There's some really nice play. I know we've got players in Palmer who wasn't quite as effective yesterday as we know he can be. And we still had our moments. Last season, it was just give the ball to Palmer and hope. We looked more compact. We didn't look as defensively a worry. Like I said, the centre-backs could have done a bit better first goal. Keeper should do better second. I don't know. Maybe I've lost my mind. Maybe I'm being overly positive. I've never seen myself as someone who's like overly positive. Particularly with Chelsea, I'm more concerned than ever in a lot of regards, or have been the last few years anyway. But even when when we were good, I'd be worried about certain things or negative towards certain things. Certain players aren't good enough, etc. But with yesterday, I didn't feel that. I felt more concerned in the aftermath. I felt more concerned in thinking, media are kind of wheedling into our own fan base at this point. That's how I felt. It's always felt us versus the world at points, and now it feels the world and some of us. Are they us? I think a fair few people yesterday almost wanted to feel vindicated that everything's shit, everything's awful at the moment. It's like there's things to be hopeful with. If you just want to go off results, that's fine. You don't have to watch the game. That's fine. Like, if you're not getting any enjoyment out of Chelsea to the point that all you want to do is shit on them, all right, fair enough. But I didn't think yesterday it warranted it. I really didn't. And I'd say, I came back from that Arsenal, when I was at Arsenal away last season. That's the worst game I've ever been to. That was fucking appalling. Appalling. In terms of selection, in terms of performance, that was diabolical how we were set up. That's when it's warranted. Like, a game like yesterday and how we played, it wasn't. Especially first game of the season when everyone's not up to speed. I don't know. We got separated by some quality yesterday, but we showed some as well. We showed some signs to be hopeful, to develop on. We can only look at Thursday, we can only look at the next game and kick on from there, and hopefully have a nice stretch of games. So people just look at it as a case of, first game of the season didn't go well. Like, even under Super Frank, the first year when we got top four with transfer ban, no Hazard, we lost 4-0 on the first day away at United. And that United side was nowhere near as good as his City side. And obviously, this lot have spent a lot of money. I get those knocks, and 300 million of it on players we don't even use or out on loans. I get it, and I don't agree with it. But at the same time, it doesn't have to all be doom. We all knew we'd back... Like, with Frank, the difference is, Frank was Frank. Frank was Super Frank. We'd seen him as a player for years and years and years. Absolute legend of the club. I'd say the best player that's ever played for Chelsea, right? So you didn't even... Losing 4-0, it didn't matter. It was like, no, we're behind Frank. And Enzo Maresca hasn't got that rapport. Obviously, he has nothing to do with Chelsea in the past, other than the fact that, they're trying to brand it as like, he's Italian. We've had some Italian managers. Cool. We have. Hopefully he's as successful as some of them. But realistically, he hasn't got that rapport. So at the moment, he has to build that rapport. He has to build the trust with the fans that Frank had from day one anyway. But being anti him already is no help and doesn't really make sense. Is it a really worrying appointment in terms of risk? Yeah, I said that from the get-go, of course. But he's here. He's here. Let's see what he's about. Like, even with Sarri Ball, because I saw comparisons to that. I fucking hated Sarri Ball, and I was very much him out when we were getting whooped by City 6-0 and losing 4-0 at Bournemouth. I know we won a Europa League in the end, but like couldn't stand it, couldn't stand the football. But for the first bit of the season, like we gave them a go. Most people gave it a go. It was only when, as things progressed and we'd seen enough, that we were like, nah, this is not it. Let's hope this guy isn't that. If we haven't got a little bit of hope to be like, no, this guy, let's see what this guy can do. It is just doomed from the start. If no one's ever going to change their opinion based on what they see, and they're just going to go in with premeditated opinions, it just, what can you do? Like, what can anyone do to change it other than win? So those wins need to come, and I really hope they do. And I think they will do, because like I said, I do think there were things to be positive about yesterday. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought of the game. You know, if you saw me on pitch side, shout out at you. Cheers, I appreciate it. Bit of a head loss with this one in terms of seeing the response to it. I just thought, I mean, everyone's trying to get, you know, rivals and media, I expect it from. They all want to get their kicks in with Chelsea the whole time. I get it. And then they'll come in with opinions that were great like 12 months ago, and they're still saying the same thing, even if it's not applicable, whatever. Or like they'll go, oh, 40 men scored. And you're like, it's not really though, is it? But okay, whatever. Like, you know, they're not intelligent or researched enough to make the right points. So we'll allow that. But when it's coming from some of our own fans, I was like, fuck, man. It's that bad. Like, if it was that negative, and I get it, but like, it's the start of a new season. After the end of last season, there was embers of hope. There were things that we liked that we saw, and I just thought that would carry on through, regardless whether Poch was there, because we were moaning about him most of the season. But a lot of the squad we were hopeful about. So I just thought, yeah, I don't know, I was just a bit surprised. I was surprised by that to some degree. I know this summer there's been some confusing business and sales, and I think that carried through. And like I said, I do get it to some degree. I just think, you know, the approach they've gone with. We've been aware of it. They've been doing it for a while now. And whether you agree with it or not, like, it's still Chelsea. Those players are still Chelsea. A manager's still at Chelsea. And whether you correspond with how the owners are operating or not, they're still not our club. They might own our club, like I said, and not everyone. Look at United with the Glazers or whatever. Like, as much as, and that's actually, you know what, the Glazers is an interesting one, because that's been, you know, they've been moaning a lot in recent years. Ferguson for a number of years was still winning with the Glazers, and there was less noise around it. I know there were United fans still protesting, but like in general there was less noise. Like, everyone else was a bit less aware of it. So it's a case of Chelsea needing to get back to that level. That is, I feel, is what ultimately Chelsea are missing, because, like I said, a lot of the problems that people pin it on are only prevalent right now because we're not winning, because they were still there with Roman. They were still there. But Roman was just the bollocks, and we ended up, you know, we were great. It's just, yeah, it's frustrating. It's a frustrating one, but I'm hoping we address those holes that we saw yesterday and we've seen in previous seasons. I don't know how they haven't addressed it. They were gaping. They were obvious, but they haven't. So let's see. Hopefully they do. But yeah, hit like and subscribe. That stuff helps me out a lot. It lets YouTube know this is the place to be, especially for Chelsea content and all football content, really. On to Thursday. Up the Chelsea.